What does IAP stands for?
IAAP aims to bring people together for quality networking, education, training, and offering certifications. That's on the membership side. So on the certification side, I work with your peers and colleagues.
Why should someone join IAP as a member?
Benefits are you have access to your peers and colleagues. You can find people that walk the walk, roll your stroll, to find resources, answers, and community.
What is the exact gap that IAP certifications fill that experience alone is not able to?
This is my job. My job is certification director in IAAP. Certification should not be the one thing that gets anybody a role ever, anywhere, in any profession. It should be complementary. It should be in addition to.
For somebody taking CPACC, how many years of experience is needed in the accessibility field?
So CPACC has a couple of options. The baseline is a minimum of 1 year of accessibility work.
If a CPA in states want to pursue CPACC, are they eligible for it?
If they can tell us how their job supports accessibility, yes.
In terms of WS, how many years of experience is needed, Sam?
3 to 5 years of responsibility delivering the job tasks, the actual bulleted job tasks.
And how much does it cost for CPACC and WS?
All in US dollars. So the standard fee, the standard rate for CPACC is $510 USD. The standard rate for WAS is $535. Now, if you're a member of the association, if you're part of the membership group, there's a $100 discount off of those prices. And then we also have an emerging and developing economies list that it's a 65% discount off of that. It brings it down to CPACC is $170. But we're opening the scholarship fund and we'll offer them twice this year in 2026 and then in subsequent years once a quarter for financial hardship for people to apply.
How long is the examination and how much I need to score to pass the certification?
So we give a scaled score. So our scale is the same for all of the exams. It's 200 to 800. And on that scale of 200 to 800, 600 is the passing point. People have asked, like, how do I know if I know this well enough? So we kind of came up with 5 points. So I'm pointing at 5 fingers on a flesh hand. Could I explain this topic to an expert? And they'd say, yes, you understand this. You have a good understanding. Second,
how can I maintain my certification?
So when you pass the assessment and you're awarded your certification, you begin a 3-year period where you hold your certification. During those 3 years, you are expected to engage either in professional development where you're the learner.
And if someone who's watching my YouTube videos to learn accessibility, do they qualify for CAEC points?
Yep. Education credits are in 15-minute increments.
Sam, if IAP were to design its certification system from scratch, what would you like to change?
My wish list would be that people understand the difference between certifications and education, training, and knowledge tests, and that it's an ongoing engagement and what it's designed to serve.
With all the stuff, everything working around AI, how do you see these certifications going forward?
I still think even where we are with AI, where people are writing prompts, the smarter people are about understanding the dynamics, the better prompts they can write. However,
this video is proudly sponsored by Accessify Labs, a company redefining how truly inclusive digital experiences are built. Accessify Labs is an end-to-end digital accessibility partner, helping organizations ensure their websites, applications, and digital platforms are accessible to everyone, regardless of ability. From expert audits and compliance to training, remediation, and continuous monitoring, they support the entire accessibility lifecycle. If you believe digital accessibility should be a standard and not an afterthought, explore Accessify Labs through the links in the description below. Hey Sam, thank you so much for joining our podcast today. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited we're finally getting to connect.
Absolutely, Sam. As we were talking offline, our viewers are eagerly waiting for this podcast. So thank you so much for taking time for us.
You're most welcome. I'm glad to be able to join.
And before we even start, Sam, congratulations because 2026 marks 10 years of CPAC. I know you started from 35 certifications back in 2016, and now we are more than 8,000 worldwide.
It's really good to see the growth in the profession and the interest. So I tell people all the time that we as support team members have the best job in the world because we support people that remove barriers for people with disabilities every day. So I can't think of a better thing to do other than participating in accessibility work ourselves. So it's really a blessing to work in support of really amazing professionals that are making the world better every day.
Absolutely. And looking back at that growth, Sam, how does it feel like IAP is now seen as the global standard when it comes to accessibility certifications?
I think it's an honor to be in that position to offer that. But I think it really speaks to the founding members who decided we go back 15 years when they decided we need to decide that accessibility is a profession with standards and language and practices, and they wanted to be able to shape it a little bit. And so and that goal is the effort really, but I think that the certification's holding as a placeholder for that. So where we can say, we all agree, my peers designed this. This is not a company like your peers and colleagues designed all of the certification content and the job tasks and what should somebody who is qualified to do this, what should they be able to do at work? And so that peer-led guidance on certifications is really exciting, and to know that that holds and still holds value and validity is really exciting. But I think that speaks to what the profession and all the practitioners want to see in the field. And that's our goal, is to keep continuing that support. So it's really exciting to know that the core competencies, the core values are still the core values. That it's still based on how do we remove barriers for people with disabilities and how do we make things usable and accessible, and understanding the impact on people. And I think that's a big differentiation between technical knowledge checks, is keeping our focus on the impact on people and why we do the work.
Yeah, after so many years, it's always important to keep your original why intact. Like, what was the reason for starting IAP? I'm pretty sure, Sam, viewers, I believe 90% of our viewers are aware what IAP is and what they do. But if you have to explain or simplify it for a new viewer, what does IAP stands for and what's your role at IAP?
So IAAP is a professional membership association. So you might be familiar with, if you were a project manager, you'd be familiar with Project Management Institute, or if you were a banker, the American Banking Association, or in an international scope, International Association of Privacy Professionals, some of our colleagues that work in privacy. But the goal is to bring together professionals that work in a shared interest area with a specific, unique topic. And for us, that's accessibility. And IAAP originally was based in digital accessibility. So bringing together education, networking, and a series of certifications that were focused on this profession, so that when people say, I work in accessibility, in some period of time, people will understand what that means beyond thinking of just an accessible sign on a door or physical accessibility, but understanding that that is a unique skill set that's part of all these different roles and responsibilities in every organization and every company. So IAAP aims to bring people together for quality networking, education, training, and offering certifications. That's on the membership side of things. And so that's the professional membership association. I work in our certification division. And so you don't have to be a member of IAAP to participate or qualify in our certification programs. In the association world, there's always a wall between the two. You can't require membership. It would be unfair. It would be like requiring somebody to be part of a club to participate in something. So on the certification side, I work with your peers and colleagues and look at job tasks that people should be able to perform at work, how those get grouped together, and if there's a requirement to qualify as a candidate for those certification programs. So we have one that's core competencies, your foundations, that everybody should know. It's like building a house or a building. If the foundation isn't strong, anything on top of it might be a little wobbly. So I get to work in that with your peers and colleagues and revisit that, and then also listen to feedback about what should we consider building for new certifications. And there's a bit of a difference between a certification and a knowledge test, because one is a program and one is a one and done. So we do a good bit of listening and build and design in that. So it's really interesting for me. But of course, I've been working in certifications for a lot of years. So
why should someone join IAP as a member? Are there any additional perks that you offer?
So being a member of an association, wherever it is, ideally is that the benefits are you have access to your peers and colleagues. You can find people that walk the walk or roll your stroll, to find resources, answers in community, along with structured education, news, and firsthand access to professionals and leaders around the world. And membership benefits really depends on how engaged you want to be. You can take advantage of everything, and if you wanted to do the math, you could find, wow, it's a tremendous savings because of all the things that are offered. But really, it's a matter of finding what's the right connection for you so that you get what you need out of it. And ideally, that usually is a personal connection, finding community, other professionals, and then discounts on offers on business services and opportunities to engage and access to things that are community-based. So I think after COVID, things got a little wobbly where everything was free to everyone to come engage online. But I think the biggest value add people talk about is access to the education, the webinars, and
So you spoke about the perks of joining IAP as a member, and it sounds to me as a one-stop shop for anything related to accessibility, growing your network, meeting other people, getting opportunities at different organizations. So is it safe to say, Sam, that it provides job opportunities as well because of the network that you have built?
think that we do hear often that people meet the colleagues they need to meet to have that interpersonal connection, to remove those barriers that people perceive and are real with applications and application tracking systems. And so people make those relationships. And when they have that opportunity, then you know somebody that you could say, hey, can you introduce me to, Joe Smith or, Francois, who's here, or, could you connect me with Regine so that I could learn more about this role or this department? Those relationships really are invaluable in associations. And I do think that helps people navigate career transitions and the opportunity to have inside connection discussions when they find postings for companies that they're interested in, and to have real live discussions with people that are based in reality, that are not fluff, and, to have those real, heart to hearts where I want to just log on and talk to you face to face, even if it's by webcam. That I think that opportunity to use the network can provide that. Yes.
So somebody who already has 10 to 15 years of experience working in the real digital accessibility, what is the exact gap that IAP certifications fill that experience alone is not able to?
So I think to explain that, I want to talk about what certifications are designed to do and what they're designed to deliver, and how they differ for people who might be in beginning, intermediate, or experienced. So for established professionals like you have lots of years of experience, more than a decade. However, when we have senior established colleagues, peers, and colleagues come together and we agree that the content and the premise of the certification itself is valuable, that it represents quality content, job tasks, and capacities, then we elevate our profession on a standard. So it then, for an established professional, becomes a commitment to the profession, a commitment to what we think we should all do collectively when we have the best tools, resources, and things available to us. But that I also am committed to standing behind my profession. And I have been validated by my peers and colleagues who built this assessment and this tool. So my peers have validated me. And so that is, it shouldn't, we'll talk about this again, I'm sure, but certifications should be a complement to your experience. And they are definitely a way to add some finesse to your portfolio for somebody that might not have the technical background to say, oh, they've held this certification, and every 3 years they go through ongoing learning and development to make sure they're staying on top of what's happening in the world. They didn't just stop learning 10 years ago. And so certification maintenance does require that ongoing engagement, which means you're a lifelong learner and you're staying on top of what's happening in your field. So, which is a bit different than I took a knowledge test 6 years ago. And I'm still working in my job. So they serve some different purposes, but for people that are experienced in the field, it's always lovely when they choose to participate with us. And it does hold some value to say, we should all be able to do these job tasks and deliver them. And I qualified because I already had experience for the intermediate levels. So it's certainly not required. I would like for companies to do a better job of assessing experience. I think that our business industry partners owe more to the professionals that do this work. And I think they kind of take the easy way out and say, I don't have to check all that. I'm just going to look for these letters, which if I could change that, I would. But it happens in every profession. It's not just in our world. And it's a shortcut that usually lives somewhere within HR and not with the actual team that's looking for the team members to add.
And the keyword to remember is validation. It validates your credibility. It does not define it, right? And Sam, most recently I did a video on how to get hired without certifications. So I believe your understanding of the need for certifications, the why behind is aligning it what I have covered in that video.
And it shouldn't be the one thing. And I say it again, and I will say it. This is my job. My job is certification director in IAAP. Certification should not be the one thing that gets anybody a role ever, anywhere, in any profession. It should be complementary. It should be in addition to. And there, in most, if you're not licensed and regulated, it's voluntary. And so, and it takes a good bit of time for a profession to be mature. And accessibility, while 36 years ago for ADA and, more than 40 years on things starting, but it's still not well known. People still don't know what it means. And they might understand if they have personal experience. So it takes some time too. And so in our first 10 years, our first decade in for certifications, we've reached 10,000 people, which is great. But it doesn't represent the whole of everyone who does accessibility work. And it shouldn't be seen as, it shouldn't be a gatekeeper, and it shouldn't be a limiter for qualified candidates. It should be in addition to, or for people who have access to the resources to achieve them.
My hope from this podcast, Sam, is to create awareness that why certifications are important, how they actually help you gain those job interviews. As you said, HRs are only looking for those keywords, right? So if that's what they're looking for, why don't you gain that experience and get that certification?
Getting those entry-level opportunities is a bit mixed up, I think, right now. We're in 2026. I see job posts that are looking for 3 or 4 different types of skill sets and listing it as an entry-level job. And so there's some issue with our companies that are doing hiring there. But gaining experience, really, I think it's just going to happen if you come into a company that has an accessibility team or a group, or it's part of their responsibilities or their KPIs. And the opportunity to say, hey, I'd like to learn more about this. I don't think it's any different than if you worked in a company to say, hey, I know I'm on the customer service team, but I'd really like to learn a little bit more about, our client services. I'd like to learn a little bit more about what our support team does. And so if you have a chance in small shops, it's a lot easier because you can say, hey, I want to cross train with my desk mate over here. But gaining that experience is really essential. And I think we have to be, I think people have to be willing to seek that out or find a way in something that's a transferable skill set. People and companies can be trained to do it in whatever flavor the company likes. But transferable skills, I think, are going to be the ways that people find their way into
Mhm.
accessibility work, probably. If they haven't done it in the past, we have a lot of people who set that as the goal. They want to learn a methodology, they want to learn practice, they want to find a job title and a job posting that is their goal. And so I think a lot of that can be learned. We have so many opportunities in the open community, larger than IAAP, to learn from colleagues and peers. Courses and education are great ways to show that you've invested your time. Even if you don't have the experience in yet, it's certainly a way to say, look at my robust portfolio of what I've taken my time to learn so that I can take those skills and apply them when you give me the chance.
Understood. We briefly touched upon gaining recognition when it comes to certification, Sam. I have seen the change or the shift, especially in India, because of the government and the regulated sector, SEBI, which is like SEC in the United States. They have made it mandatory for all the listed digital assets with them to be fully compliant by a certain timeline. Because of that, IAP certifications are gaining recognition, especially in India. So if we have to help someone who's watching this video, how can they become IAP certified professionals? What are the right steps they need to take?
So I think understanding, so in India, the government requirements to qualify for a tender for government projects is that the team members must be either CPACC certified, certified professional in accessibility core competencies, or WAS, web accessibility specialist. So some members of the team, and the goal with that is that your team members have an understanding of accessibility and impact on people with disabilities so that you build better products and services. So CPACC is core competencies and foundation. It's not technical in nature, but it's really hard to deliver good products and services around accessibility if you don't understand how it impacts people and why. So having those understandings of understanding disabilities, what types of adaptive strategies people use, and what kind of assistive tech people use, and how testing across those fields is important, and understanding that is really essential to doing high quality accessibility work, no matter what your role.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have years of experience on the technical side, CPACC plus your work, plus your lived experience should be a really good set of presentations for you as a candidate. So we have people who have 20 years of experience who hold CPACC simply because they want to say, this validates these core understandings and these core necessities. We have to understand this. To do good work, we have to understand this basic information. Now, technical, WAS, the Web Accessibility Specialist, that has some experience requirements, and it's not just knowledge. So you have to have time in 3 different areas. You have to have experience in actually delivering code. So you have to be part of an engineering or a development team where you're personally responsible for delivering that content, not just advising and not just working with or not just understanding it. Plus, the piece that most people get first is usability and accessibility testing. That's where we validate and test things, and then performing audits on websites, and then delivering reports on what's wrong, what's the highest priority. So there's 3 parts of WAS. And we have a lot of people that work in accessibility and usability testing, and development teams rely on those team members. But WAS requires some breadth across all 3 areas. So I would love for more people to have engineering and testing and audit experience, but it's a smaller set.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
those people with WAS should be able to roll in on day one and work on the dev team and fill in and not necessarily write code from scratch, but work in the code and know how to deploy what, why, when, how, or if there's a ticket that comes in, what needs to be fixed with it. And they're
Mm-hmm.
going to require some insights from their testers and their usability colleagues too. But that WAS part, that first section, does mean actually work in that area. It's not just a testing certification.
Mhm.
And that's 3 to 5 years of work in that area. So not just starting, it's not a starting point. It's for people who've already got several years of work
Mhm.
experience.
Awesome. This is a good direction that we have taken, Sam. Let's simplify it further, right? For somebody taking CPAC, how many years of experience is needed in the accessibility field?
So CPAC has a couple of options. The baseline is a minimum of 1 year of accessibility work.
Mm-hmm.
Or I have a new job and accessibility is part of my work. And so in order for me to feel confident in my ability to do that part of my job, CPAC is going to help me build that foundation. Or I am planning a new career path and I want it to go in the direction of accessibility. And so CPAC offers three options. So a minimum of 1 year experience or a new job or new responsibility, like accessibility has been added to your work.
Mm-hmm.
Or I have a career strategy ahead of me and I'm looking down the field and accessibility is where I want to go and I want to use CPAC for my foundation. So
Awesome.
CPAC has the biggest option for most
Mm-hmm.
people that doesn't require 3 to 5 years of technical experience.
So if somebody is not from, let's say, computer background, let's take an example of CPA here in States. If a CPA in States want to pursue CPAC, are they eligible for it?
If they can tell us how their job supports accessibility, yes.
Okay, so there's a vetting
So
process that they have to go through. Do they have to submit a resume to qualify for this?
we do ask for a resume just to validate that people have work experience
Mm-hmm.
and that they are who they say they are. But the resume isn't what we check for CPAC. So for
Mm-hmm.
CPAC, we ask how many years of experience do you have in accessibility? If it's less than one, there's a logic that says, tell us how your role supports the accessibility profession. So it is a professional certification. So our goal is that if you're pursuing it, you are working in the profession and you want to grow the profession. So
Mm-hmm.
we're still looking for people to tell us how what they do for work supports accessibility as a profession as well. So there are some checks in that, but we're open to
Mm-hmm.
people telling us that information
Okay.
and they can explain it. If they can't tell us how their role relates to accessibility, they're probably not actually working in accessibility. They're probably
Mm-hmm.
just looking to get some letters and that's we don't give that to anybody who can't tell us how their work relates to accessibility. It's not a participation trophy. So
Got it.
um, we want people to be able to tell us in plain language how their work relates to accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have to maintain it. They've got 3 years and there's some requirements, so it's not a one and done. Yeah, that CPA would have to do their accounting stuff and their accessibility
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So
Yeah,
they'd have to want to carry both of those levels of development.
of course, of course. It's an added responsibility. Okay, in terms of WS, how many years of experience is needed, Sam, to just qualify for this certification?
3 to 5 years of responsibility delivering the job tasks, the actual bulleted job tasks that are in the
Mm-hmm.
body of knowledge. So it's not just 3 to 5 years of work experience. It's 3 to 5 years of doing the work that's in WAS. So you could have worked for 15 years, but if you only have a year or two in working in a dev team and you haven't done the testing, it's being a software developer is amazing. And I'm so glad that people have brains and hearts that make those things run. But to qualify for WAS, it is 3 to 5 years of experience doing that technical digital
Mm-hmm.
accessibility work.
Got it. And how much does it cost for CPAC and WS? Let's stay limited to
Um,
US,
so
if you talk about US only.
so they're all in US dollars. So the standard fee, the standard rate for CPAC is 510 USD. The standard rate for WAS is 535. Now, if you're a member of the association, if you're part of the membership group, there's a $100 discount off of those prices. And then we also have an emerging and developing economies list that is a combined list of United Nations developing economies and World Bank list of countries that have it's a 65% discount off of that. It brings it down to CPAC is 170, and I have to do the math. I have a math disability, so remembering numbers is not my strength here. So let me look up the
Sure.
WAS is 225. So
Okay.
that's still a significant investment for folks in emerging and developing economies.
So India does qualify under emerging economies, right? So it's going to be
Yes.
$170 for CPAC and 225 for WS,
Yes.
right? And that's where my next question for you, Sam, is because most of our viewers are either trying to get into accessibility, making that career shift, or they're already doing the accessibility work but want to pursue the certification. And they are not getting the support from their companies. They're on their own. What provisions is IAP working on to include those members who are willing to go for certifications?
So last year in 2025, the company DQ, that is a large software company, they host a conference each year called AXCON. And last year, DQ's AXCON selected IAAP's certifications as their nonprofit of choice, and they granted us some seed money for a scholarship fund. So we have enough money in that seed fund to go for several years, and our goal is to grow donations from others who can contribute. But we're opening the scholarship fund, and we'll offer them twice this year in 2026, and then in subsequent years, once a quarter, for financial hardship for people to apply. And we'll be able to award, I think, 12 scholarships each quarter. So, but the goal is for people to be able to tell us how they plan to work in accessibility, what their commitment is. We aren't looking for personal information, but just to describe their financial hardship. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're going to open that scholarship. I think we're going to open our 2026. Our first session will come up online in this second quarter of 2026. And then we'll open another application session in third quarter. It's not going to serve everyone, but it
Mm-hmm.
is an opportunity that's contributed by earmarked funds at IAAP to provide scholarship assistance, at least for 48 people a year, to qualify. People can apply once a year. Bring your best and brightest. You'll tell us your letter of interest, a letter of recommendation from a colleague, peer, workplace partner, and we'll go from there. That's a start. So that's our starting point.
Well, this is huge, Sam. I believe companies like TQ and others in the domain, I believe they have to come forward and support. As you can understand, there is a huge community who wants to go for these certifications, but because of financial hardship or not getting enough support from their company in terms of their learning and development, they're not able to achieve it. But yeah, what I can do best, Sam, I'll put the link once it's available online. I can coordinate with you and share it with our viewers.
Yep.
Awesome.
So we're excited about that as a starting point. And
Mm-hmm.
as people and or companies donate to that endowment fund, we'll be able to offer larger numbers of scholarships.
Love it. So, in terms of preparing for these examinations or these certifications, Sam, how can I go ahead and see what is needed for me to qualify? What should I learn before I appear for the certification?
So I think the first piece, we kind of invite people to kind of explore a little bit about each of the certifications. And so that first piece is it's called, I mentioned the word job task before, and that's actually what would you functionally do in your job? What are the job tasks? But those job tasks are kind of grouped together in like categories. And those become what are called domains or sections or content areas. And there's a content outline, which is actually a blueprint for the exam, for the assessment. The content outline is high level. And so we invite people to start on the about page for each certification they're interested in and read the content outline and say, I do this. I'm familiar with this. I'm not so familiar with this piece of the puzzle. Maybe I might need to learn more about this. Oh, if this is required, I might not qualify for this one. So for CPACC, it's very broad. So that is a learning opportunity for CPACC. And if you either have 1 year of experience or a new, accessibility is added to your role, or you can tell us about your career plans, you can learn what you need to learn for CPACC. For WAS or ADS, so Web Accessibility Specialist, that content outline, you need to have already been responsible for doing those job tasks in your various positions for a minimum of 3 to 5 years. It's not just I understand it. It's not just I advise other people how to do it, but I've been responsible for doing that work. That's the first pass. Now, I encourage everyone to use those content outlines in the body of knowledge, which is the bigger document that takes each of those content areas and expands out with more details, with resources, with additional reading. They're great educational tools. They're great guides. So I encourage people to use them. They're free. They're available. The body of knowledge is available in PDF, Word, EPUB. We just have put CPACC together in an audio format too. So, so there's lots of opportunities to use that, but that is to determine when you first are looking, am I the right fit for this certification? And is that certification the right fit for me?
All right.
So,
talking about body of knowledge, Sam, a lot of my students and candidates who are trying to go for certification, body of knowledge is scaring them off. So is there a mechanism in place or the team working to make it more digestible? Because right now it's overwhelming.
So my suggestion is, like with if you were in school in a course, instead of looking at the whole book, take one chapter at a time, take one section at a time, and make a study plan. And so it's too much to take in all at once. But the exam is written from the body of knowledge. Literally, every question on the exam comes from a study bullet point in the body of knowledge. So that really needs to be the basis of how people prepare.
And that's a huge insight, Sam.
So that's why the body of knowledge is the baseline. Every exam question is written by your peers and colleagues. They take that bulleted study objective, find resources to support it, write out the questions, write out the one correct response, write out something that could be, but with experience, you have a little bit more knowledge to know the difference, and two incorrects. So those bulleted study topics, that is where the exam is written from.
Mm-hmm.
That is why we suggest the body of knowledge should be the baseline for all of your study prep.
And probably the reason why it's so lengthy.
It's because it's designed to be not all encompassing, but to explain what that job task is and why it matters for that one job task. Each bullet is a job task. And so the goal is not to give you a list of things to go and figure out, but you're being assessed on this and you're expected to be able to deliver this job task. And here's how you might encounter this in the workplace.
Sure. Okay.
So that you can apply the concept in context in the workplace.
Right.
Without having to Google it.
Exactly.
We all are going to do a little bit of that, but the goal is for experience-based requirements that you've already done this work.
The reason I giggled, it's no, people are using ChatGPT instead of Googling it now. Yeah, times are changing, Sam. But so far, we have covered what is the eligibility criteria for CPACC versus WS, how much it's going to cost to a student, right? And if there is any seed money for any scholarship that is upcoming, right? In terms of, we also covered where to study about it. So body of knowledge is the right place, as you mentioned. Next, how much time is needed for each type of exam? Like how long is the examination and how much I need to score to pass the certification?
So the exams, so CPACC has 100 questions. And so what we do is we give a scaled score. So, because what happens with the young people and adults the same, if you give them a percentage, they're going to stop studying at so many pages into the document. So we give a scaled score. So our scale is the same for all of the exams. It's 200 to 800. So, and on that scale of 200 to 800, 600 is the passing point. If you were in college or university, that would be better than a B or, a second tier. You're not getting a C or lower, not to use American terms, but, you would need 80% or better on your overall scores. So it's not looking for somebody that does a mediocre job. We're looking for people that can do this at a higher capacity than barely passing. So because we're quantifying people that are doing things that are based on granting people the ability to live, work, and play independently, right? So we don't need it to be so-so.
Mm-hmm.
So that passing point is 600 out of 200 to 800. Every person brings their own knowledge and lived experience with them. So how long it takes somebody to prepare for the exam is really going to be unique to each person. However, we do suggest that people take 6 to 8 weeks time to study and prepare. And depending on what their life allows them, somewhere between 5 and 10 hours a week. That's a lot of time, but we're talking about a pretty big set of content to look at.
Absolutely. You need a dedicated
there's
time to study.
Yeah, and so there's other resources too that are both free and paid that are available too, that are community. When community comes and say, hey, I used this, it was really great,
Mm-hmm.
we are happy to add that to the prepare for section so that people can learn from their peers and colleagues. So there are other online materials and community resources as well for all of the certifications. So
The
people have asked, like, how do I know if I know this well enough? So
mm-hmm.
I'm going to go back to those bulleted study points that are the top of each section in the body of knowledge. So I came up with this years ago, and I was trying to help somebody study who was really frustrated with trying to determine, do I know enough to do this? So
Yeah.
we kind of came up with 5 points. So I'm pointing at 5 fingers on a flesh hand. Could I explain this topic to an expert? And they'd say, yes, you understand this. You have a good understanding. Second, could I explain what happens to people with disabilities when this is done wrong or not delivered properly? What barrier does it present? Third, when it's done correctly, what barrier does that remove and what does it enable people with disabilities to do? Fourth, I can't hold that pinky finger down. Fourth is why do we do this work? What is our purpose in doing this work, whether it's a technical component or policy guidance? Why do we do this work and why does that matter? Why am I pursuing this? And how will I encounter this in the workplace? What is it going to look like on the job? And then the last piece is, can I explain it to my grandma, my neighbor, the dog walker, why this work matters? So if we can say the expert says you understand, I can explain the barrier it presents when it's done wrong. I can talk about the barriers it removes. I can explain how I'm going to encounter this in the workplace and why we are doing this work. And can I talk about the actual component about why accessibility, why we do this work to somebody who doesn't work in our technical world? If we can do all those 5 things for each of those bulleted points, you should be able to answer the questions in context. So it's not a deep dive on each of those bullets, but there's a good number of them, which is why we suggest taking some time and making a study plan, map it out. And for those of us who might have been out of school for a while, we might not have learned how to study back then. So now's a good time to learn how to map out a study plan.
Sam, this is gold. For anyone who is preparing for these certifications and have that question, how I do know whether I'm ready or not, these 5 points are going to certainly help now. So thank you for this.
Yeah.
Talking about proctoring or remote proctoring, is it available in all countries?
So there are some limitations, some that are technical and some that are governmental. So there are some parts of the world where governments block remote proctoring. And so there's a short list of countries where, since we are a US-based company and our test partners are US-based, where they don't allow people from certain countries to participate or their governments block it. So there's a short list there. But the biggest challenge is not so much where it's available. It's a matter of technical capacity for bandwidth to support. And it's not just video up, but video down and maintaining video for hours at a stretch. So that's an infrastructure challenge in lots of parts of the world. So I think in bigger Western industrialized countries, people take that for granted. But in a lot of, I would say in 80% of the world, that is not the standard. So we have some options to work with folks that have maybe less stable internet connectivity options.
Okay, so we do offer options in case there are internet issues or remote proctoring is not allowed legally, I would say, from the government entities, right? Okay.
Yes.
And those options are available online if I have to put that in the link.
They are. And so the option on the application is to say, I want to choose Pearson OnView, Pearson Remote. I want to go to a Pearson Test Center, or Pearson doesn't work for me for any number of reasons. Please have your team contact me,
Well, that's
and
perfect.
our staff will work with you directly.
Oh, great. Awesome. That's good to know, Sam. Again, a lot of knowledge, a lot of information that you are sharing that kept users guessing, right? Or I would say, I would use the term aspirants because everybody wants to take IAP certifications. And before I forget, we spoke about CPACs, how much scaling or 600 points are needed, right? What about WAS?
It's the same scale.
Oh, it's the same scale.
800, and 600 is the passing point.
Okay, so it's same for both CPACC and WAS.
It is. The scale is the same.
Okay.
It's not a curve. A lot of people, when they hear scale, think it's a curve, like a certain number of people will pass. There's not a curve. It's not preset. But the passing score is set, that scale of 600 points. That is set. That's the same.
Okay. And once you pass both CPACC and WS, you become CPWA, right?
If you hold one and earn the second, while it's still valid, then yes, CPWA. And instead of holding 2 certifications and having to do 80 hours of credit across the 3 years for learning, we combine it and say 55 credits instead of 45 plus 35. So yes.
Right. And last I checked, CPWAs across the globe are roughly 650. So that's an elite group of members who are CPWA.
Yes, it is. It's a very elite group, and it's really an impressive group of people too, across industries, across roles, and across different backgrounds.
Awesome. Okay. The next question that I have for you, Sam, is related to the wait period. Waiting weeks for getting results actually adds unwanted stress and is demoralizing, right? So what is the reason that the process takes that long?
So part of this has to do with what the data validation has to do with certification exams. When you get to numbers where you're in the millions of people, you've already done more than 50,000 runs-throughs of data of questions like item banks. So there's selections of items, questions for the exams. But since we are still at under 10,000, on each certification, we are required to look at the data performance on each exam. So that means each exam form, we need to look, and we have a partner that does this with us to say, did all of the exam questions perform as we expected? Did any of our exam questions stand out for our strong performers on the exam that they answered incorrectly? Did any of our less, complicated questions get answered incorrectly? Or were there complicated questions that got answered correctly by low performers? All of that data has to be looked at for each exam session. Because then we need to determine, is there something wrong with the question? If there was a new exam item that got brought in on the new, because they're not all the same questions. Not everybody gets the same exam form. So we have to look at those questions each exam session to determine, is everything performing as it was designed to? Are there any outliers? It's not like a professor running a Scantron exam through a machine at the end of a class. They don't care. It's done. You either got it right or wrong, and that's the end. But we're required as a professional certifying body to ensure that the validity of our exam questions holds up, and there's not something odd in the way that the exam assessments are scored. If something pops up that shows up, and occasionally we will find something with new questions that come up, or if people write on our feedback and say, I didn't like this question, I think it was unfair, I think it was wrong, we have to go back and look at each of those questions and determine, was there something not as strong as it could have been for the question or for the response options? Do we need to revisit that question? Do we need to gather subject matter experts to review it? Do we need to give credit for the whole question? Do we need to give credit for one or all of the responses? And so That's what takes the time.
Mhm.
It always comes out to the benefit of the test taker.
Got it.
But that's unique to certifications, which is different than a knowledge test or a quiz or
Mhm.
a course exam kind of a thing. None of that's required in courses in knowledge checks, but for certifying bodies, it is required.
Got it. And probably that is the reason if a candidate fails narrowly as well, the timeline, the waiting period for retaking the examination is also extensive, right?
Well, it is, but the other thing is that the human brain tends to remember what we did most recently, and our recall, if we answered it
Mm-hmm.
wrong, our recall in a short period of time is going to be the same thing we did before, and then people tend to repeat that again. And the goal is to spend some time reviewing which domains we were not as strong in, to maybe spend some time to maybe reprogram our brain connections on the concepts and not try to repeat what we did the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And to also not have any opportunity for similar exam questions to come through the cycle on the exam forms as they're assembled.
Mm-hmm. 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 And you also spoke about in case there are any discrepancies, if the applicant feels that the question he or she marked as should be correct and she should be scoring more, there is a way to appeal for it.
So there's feedback options on all of the exam formats, whether it's at
Mm-hmm.
Pearson or with our other options. And we go through and read all of that. Quite literally, our team looks at every piece of feedback and goes back to the question, and we
Mm-hmm.
determine, is this a misunderstanding or is there some quality content that we need to look at?
Okay.
So that feedback comes in. Now, we don't expose exam questions a second time. So if somebody doesn't pass and they want to know, what did I get right or wrong? That's not an option because that compromises the entire exam form itself. So that doesn't come out. But we do take that feedback quite literally, hundreds every session, to look at those questions. It's not done with AI, it's
Mm-hmm.
actual real humans, to see, do we need to investigate this further? And occasionally there are times, but that means a week or two to get 10 subject matter experts together, to have them look at the question in advance, to do the review, and then
Mm-hmm.
determine what changes we need to make and then implement those score changes. So that's 2 or 3 weeks just to get 10 people together. So
Yeah.
it's not that we don't want to get scores out to people, but until certification programs get to where they're in hundreds of thousands, it's not possible
Mm-hmm.
to deliver scores instantly. Not for
Got it.
certifying bodies. It's different than a skills test.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Of course.
That's what our responsibility is to meet ISO standards, is that we validate the data and the performance of the content.
Yep, absolutely, Sam. And this is the exact kind of clarity that we are seeking from a director of certification at IAP. And as I said earlier, this is gold for anyone who's aspiring to have these certifications. So far, Sam, we have discussed about on how to get a certification. And the battle doesn't end there, right? You have to maintain that certification to maintain that validation. So let's talk about the second part of it. Can you list out what all are the activities that qualify, or before we even do that, how can I maintain my certification?
So people, and this is part of where things are also maybe confusing for people new to certifications, is that people are applying to qualify as a candidate for the program, not just to take the exam. So when you pass the assessment and you're awarded your certification, you begin a 3-year period where you hold your certification. During those 3 years, you are expected to engage either in professional development, where you're the learner, you are learning so that you are on top of what's happening in your industry, your unique area of expertise, or you are sharing your knowledge with the accessibility profession, peer to peer. Outside of your job, we get our paycheck for our job. We don't get credit for doing our job. You're expected to be working in the profession to hold a professional certification, or you're doing volunteer work in some capacity in association-related activities outside of your job. It doesn't mean that if your work pays for you to go to a conference or a webinar, that doesn't count, but we don't grant credit of hours for my role as, accessibility professional X. So ideally, most of those hours are going to come for people that are learning. So webinars, meetups, conferences, they don't have to be paid. They don't have to be live. They don't have to be in English, but where the topic is related to your certification. So you are learning about things about your credential and the job tasks that are related to that. That's the goal in professional development. So your education credits, it's education. You are being educated in an ongoing basis.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sharing your knowledge in the accessibility profession. So peer-to-peers, not to clients, not to customers, not to the public, not speaking engagements, but where you're sharing your knowledge in the community, the profession. So your videos are a really good example. Your podcasts are really great examples of that. It's not paid work, but you're sharing to peers and colleagues. So that's ideally peer-to-peer. But you're sharing your knowledge that's related to your certification content. That content outline is going to be your checkpoint for those 3 years. Or doing volunteer work, whether it's with a community or IAAP or some other organization or GAD or meetups, where you're structuring and facilitating professional connections. So there's different opportunities. And for people that are established pros, they don't need to do introductory webinars. But realistically, we all need to keep learning what's happening with the European Accessibility Act last year, with what's changing with there's always things to learn. The legal landscape changes, the technology landscape changes. If we aren't staying on top of our education, I'm not really sure we're going to be viable partners for the public or government. So the goal is across those 3 years, you're spending a certain number of hours, and it's credit. 1 hour of engagement is 1 credit. So it's not massive. For CPACC, it's 45 across 3 years. So we're talking about 15 credits a year, 15 hours, 1 hour and 15 minutes a month. I can get that from watching one webinar and maybe, a short snip somewhere. We're not talking about a large amount of time when we've done it intentionally. So it doesn't have to be paid. So it's not a financial barrier, and it doesn't have to be live in real time. So, but it's reasonable to expect that a professional will spend at least 1 hour and 15 minutes a month. I think that's reasonable to stay on top of what they're doing for work.
And if someone who's watching my YouTube videos to learn accessibility, and my videos are on average 15 minutes, so do they qualify for CAEC points?
Yep. Education credits are in 15-minute increments. So 0.25 for a 15-minute video. Yes.
Perfect.
And so what we knew for that, how do I get credits? When you earn your certification, you have an online portal, and it's like an expense report. If you want to get reimbursed, you have to show your receipt. This is what I bought. So if it's on demand, there still would be, here's the URL for the program, here's the topic name, and here's how long it was. And so a screenshot, the URL, and the topic and how it related. And then that's your supporting documentation. If it was something you registered for, you'd have your email. You'd save the email. That's your supporting documentation. And the goal is make it a regular thing, once a quarter, once a month. Put it on your calendar. What did I do this month to get my credits? Don't wait for 3 years. I have to wait 3 years to submit mine for my own professional certifications. I can't do it in an iterative fashion. So I have Excel spreadsheets and folders on my computer where I save everything I do, because I don't want to get down to the end of my 3 or 4 years and be like, oh, I'm short 10 hours. What am I going to do? So we have ours open where people can submit every day if they wanted to, but we encourage people to do it in groups. So
yeah. And I'll be honest, and there's no shame in admitting what wrong I did, because I was not aware on how to maintain certification throughout the 3 years. I ended up submitting all those points 6 months before the certifications were due. Okay, and if you recall, I reached out to you. Hey, what I need to do? What is the evidence? How do I submit it? What format it is needed, right? So you were a huge help in maintaining my certification. And to enable all our listeners and viewers for this, I need a couple of things from you. I'll put that link in the description section of this video, a link where I can go and submit my CAEC points.
Mhm.
What does evidence account for? I know you briefly touched upon it. It should have your name, the session that you attended, date on which you attended, how long or the duration of that session. Anything apart from this that accounts for evidence?
That's the basics. And we have an
Mm-hmm.
Excel spreadsheet that is way you can track it on your own. And we encourage you
Okay.
to keep it on a personal device or a cloud so that if you
Mm-hmm.
change jobs or your emails disappear. So there's a tracking sheet that you can use. And we also have what's called a scribe, which is kind of an interactive tool to watch and see how to do that as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll share those with you, like how to do it, what to save, and how to upload it that shows how to interact with the portal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got it. That would be perfect for our listeners, Sam.
Yeah.
Sam, if IAP were to design its certification system from scratch, let's say today you have to go back and see what's working and what are the areas that needs to be improved, be it awareness, be it how the process is, what would you like to change?
So my wish list. So my wish list on running a program, and then I'll make a wish list if it was somebody that's pursuing certifications. My wish list would be that people understand the difference between certifications and education, training, and knowledge tests, and that it's an ongoing engagement and what it's designed to serve. So I would like for people to understand. I think the certifications we have are working as they're designed. I think people have expectations that are a bit different. And so on the candidate side, I think people they want to know how this is going to help them advance their careers. That's what people want to know most. And so, but it requires a little bit of time in to understand what the certifications are designed to do and how best to use them. And I think if we were to go back, so I came in 3 months after the first CPAC exam test in San Diego 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it was a group of volunteer leaders, and they knew they wanted to quantify knowledge, but hadn't thought through at that point in time, how do I explain this as a career stepping stone or how to advance careers or introduction into the profession? And so I think on the customer side, the candidate side, I would wish for that to be more clear. How do I best use this to help me with my goals? Kind of like a career pathway kind of thing. Where does certification fit into my future
Mm-hmm.
plans?
Okay, so that would be an aspiring change, Sam.
Yeah. And I think we're getting better at that. And so um and it takes time and to find multi modes of ways to deliver that
Mm-hmm.
information so that people can consume it in whatever fashion makes most sense
Yeah,
to them.
yeah, yeah. And we are in 2026, Sam. Everyone is talking about AI. So with AI in place, wherein I simply write a prompt to create a web accessible component, even though it's not 100% accurate, with all the stuff, everything working around AI, how do you see these certifications going forward?
So we had some good discussions about that at CSUN recently, the large conference in Anaheim a couple of weeks back. I still think even where we are with AI, where people are writing prompts, the smarter people are about understanding the dynamics, the better prompts they can write. However, we are always going to need people that understand the nuances to manage AI. And there's a difference between LLMs and automation of tools. And so I think that we will probably need to revisit on the dev side of things as things get automated on build. And less manual writing code from scratch is not going to be a thing that exists, core components, but it still is essential knowledge. And I think there are large enterprise systems that are never going to make that leap in the next 5 years. We are going to have systems that require that knowledge. So I think AI as a tool to help us automate and scale accessibility is
Mm-hmm.
important. And I think we'll probably investigate how to incorporate that into probably a future iteration on several different certifications. But we know the dangers of bad information getting replicated and exponentially enlarged and hallucinations, but the automation possibilities are really fascinating to watch what can happen with well-written prompts and good tools, but you have to test them to make sure that the output is the same. And we were watching iterative outcomes where it varied out of 5 or 7, of the same prompt, different things came out. So there's still going to be a need to manage what AI produces and have enough knowledge to understand what's right, wrong, or what might be a danger in that. So it's not the panacea. It's not going to replace humans. I think we're going to wind up with these companies that have put all their money in on AI to remove people, and they're going to discover that their AI wasn't quite as smart as they thought it was, and now they need the people to fix what the AI screwed up. And we'll find a happy medium somewhere in between where smart people use smart AI to do better lift faster, but still check it for QA and quality control, I think. We'll see. But we're seeing people chunk stuff out, vibe coding and all this stuff, which is fine, except there's no consideration about the end user and the impact. So there's still a lot to be done.
I completely agree on this with you, Sam. There are a lot of uncertainties when it comes to AI, how it's going to enhance the experience, not only for developing these applications, but how do we maintain and how do we carry forward?
What's interesting is people that understand accessibility teaching the AI tools to do things in iterative steps, to incorporate accessibility elements to produce something that's usable, but they're using their knowledge to use the tool for the automation, and it's really impressive to watch it happen. And I'm fascinated, and it's here, it's been here, it's here for the long term, but there's too much risk for impact on people for letting it run rampant without guidance.
Absolutely. Sam, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. I believe it's a gold for anyone who wants to pursue these certifications. And the real reason why, real human experience that goes behind the exams, the fees, and the maintenance requirements. Thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge.
Well, I am always excited. I've been following you, and I've been so pleased to have a chance to get to know you over the years. And I appreciate all of your knowledge sharing that you do to help people grow in accessibility in the profession. So this is how the community gets grown. This is how we build, is, friendly faces and voices helping us find our way forward through things. And so whether that's informal or informal passages, that's our connections that make our world come closer together and help us all grow. So
absolutely,
I'm so
Sam.
pleased, and I'm so glad that we had time. I apologize. I had some delays on my side. So, but I'm so pleased to have time with you, and I'm always happy to answer any questions.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you, Sam. If you're certified, I hope this conversation gave you better clarity on why things work the way they do. And if you're not certified yet, I hope this helped you make a more informed decision, not a pressured one.